If you're a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing facility and your machinery isn't working right, Grainger knows you need to understand what's wrong as soon as possible. So when a conveyor motor falters, Grainger offers diagnostic tools like calibration kits and multimeters to help you identify and fix the problem. With Grainger, you can be confident you have everything you need to keep your facility running smoothly. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Hey guys, Brad Gilmore here. Want to give a big shout out to our title sponsor, Walker Texas Lawyer. If you or a loved one have been injured in an accident, whether that be a car, truck, motorcycle accident, or some kind of other issue, hit up Walker Texas Lawyer at 713-552-1117 or walkertexaslawyer.com.
Oh, Brad, what have you done now?
Broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, and around the world. TV host, best-selling author, and radio personality Brad Gilmore brings you a collection of conversations with stars from movies.
Matthew McConaughey.
Brad Gilmore.
Mark Wahlberg.
Hey, how are you?
The legendary Mr. Christopher Lloyd. Christopher, how are we doing?
Well, I'm doing good. Great introduction.
Jessica Alba and Lizzie Mathis. Ladies, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Kevin Costner joins us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Television.
Jimmy Fallon joins us this morning. Jimmy, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Brad, for having me. I appreciate this, bud.
Kelly Ripa.
Brad, thank you for having me.
Comedy.
Jay Leno joins us. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, Brad, what's going on?
Chris Tucker is in the building. Chris Tucker, good morning to you.
Hey, Brad. Good morning to you. How are you?
George Lopez joins us right now. George, how are you doing, sir?
Good morning.
Music.
Lola Monroe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
The legendary frontman of AC/DC, Brian Johnson, joins us right now. Brian, how you doing?
Good morning, Brad. What lovely to talk to me. Funny lad.
Megan Trainor.
Thank you so much, Brad. You're awesome.
Chloe Bailey joins us. I appreciate the time.
Appreciate you.
And more. This is The Collection. Now your host, The Boat.
Brad Gilmore!
Joining me right now is a man who I've been a fan of for a very long time. I've followed his career throughout several projects. He actually holds the distinction of being in two of my 10 favorite films of all time, two of them on my top 10 list. And you know what? I think he just added another one to it with Waltzing with Brando. He is the one and only Billy Zane. Billy, thank you so much for taking the time.
Brad, thank you so much. What a pleasure. What were those two? If I can, let me try to guess.
Go for it.
Demon Knight?
Demon Knight isn't there, no.
No. Wow,
No.
Interesting. Hold on. The Phantom?
The Phantom is one, yes, of course.
And could be Zoolander, could be Titanic. I can't quite tell.
Zoolander's on there. You know what? Zoolander is on there. So is Back to the Future, which you're in as well. So
oh my God. All right. So what were your two? What were your two? Without,
it was Back to the Future and the Phantom.
Without my prompting. Those are fine films.
Yes. You know what? I actually got to talk to Simon Windsor, who directed The Phantom one time, and he said it was a lovely experience, a beautiful film, beautiful scenery that y'all got to shoot in. And he said you were always offset, getting ready and getting all pumped up before you had to be on camera. Do you remember that?
I do, because I didn't want to wear a muscle suit. And boy, there was times I regretted that because I realized, it was a very unforgiving costume, nothing quite to it. Kind of was about that big on a hanger, and I went, oh, nuts. I thought a naturalist hero, he needs to have Tarzan muscle, no rubber or armor. That was tough.
But you know what? That movie was so great, and your scenes with Treat Williams are literally a treat to watch. The interplay between the two of you. He was so charismatic and off the page in that movie. It was phenomenal.
He was masterful, on stage and screen. One of my favorite actors, rest his soul. Just beautiful man.
Beautiful man.
Real pleasure working with him.
It's interesting to even bring up the Phantom because I think it kind of gets right into Waltzing with Brando because the Phantom literally in the comic book pages had a duality about him, Kit Walker, and then this protector of a jungle. And when I was watching Waltzing with Brando last night, loved the movie, by the way. There's such a duality to Brando that I didn't, I think, recognize before. He is this serious, great craftsman of an actor, but also completely silly at times, a practical joker, a conservationist, an environmentalist, a civil rights activist. There's a duality in this guy.
Wow, you're pretty good at this. You should host a show. My goodness, what a great distillation. No, he was certainly full of complexities and contradictions, and what we really wanted to do was kind of reclaim the legacy from the trauma that befell him at the end of his life, and really shine a light on where he was just the tip of the spear of activism. There were no Hollywood activists at the time. The man really walked the walk for civil rights, indigenous rights, and the little known fact that he championed environmental rights as early as 1969. That wasn't really a thing, you know. Incredible, and a very a kind of an entertaining and fun telling of his relationship with his architect while they're trying to figure out how to, you know, it's like, you know, these interesting buddies trying to figure out how to bring power and water to his island without fossil fuels at the time, which was kind of unheard of. It was pretty wild.
Well,
Early solar and, you know.
Yeah, and an innovator, you know, and just the idea of his throwing ideas out there of like, hey, let's electric eels. Let's see what can we do with electric eels. And I love the moment in the film where there's the eels in the pond, and then you see the light start to flicker, and John Heater's character almost looks off like, did he figure this out? Did Brando really figure it out? But you know, with movies like this, when you portray such a well-known figure, I go back to Joaquin Phoenix as Johnny Cash, or even recently Austin Butler as Elvis. You can go to
Jamie is, you know, I mean, that's the bar right there, man. You know,
yeah, Jamie is Ray.
That Ray was killer, right? You know, they were all, you know, all of those performances were stellar.
But even like Michelle Williams, when she took on Marilyn Monroe, some of these are less about impression and more about essence. I felt like they all embodied an essence of the person, not trying to do a one-to-one impression, because Brando has such a unique and distinct way of speaking and carrying himself, maybe one of the most impressioned individuals of his era. I'm sure that it was sometimes difficult to not want to slip into that impression, but I felt like you really embodied an essence of him.
Thank you. That was the objective, really. There's lots of people do great impressions of him, and that was the last thing I really wanted to do. And it just seemed more organic to connect with the similarities we shared as an on-ramp in terms of process. I don't really think he was that much of a method actor. I think he really liked improvisation, and I think he liked being blindsided and kept off balance and certainly not knowing his lines, which I can relate to in some ways. I kind of like being a little loose, you know, on those two, much to the chagrin of some of my co-stars, I imagine. However, to approach him, I had to approach him as if, and ask the question is, how would Marlon do this? And that was to not, I don't think he'd give a heck. You know what I mean? It was such an important undertaking that I had to resist the reverence and the otherness of simply, you know, worshiping at the temple of Brando, as every actor does. I had to just do away with all that and just be the guy and flow the way he does. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, and that came across. And even to me, one of the beautiful things about this portrayal of Brando, and again, I found myself when I was watching this movie, I found myself just wanting to be in his presence. It was a fun movie to watch. Whereas some of these, you know, biopics, and look, and sometimes they have to tell the whole story of an individual, and that goes through dark and tumultuous times. But what I loved about this film, it was actually an enjoyable experience to just sit there and watch him in his, you know, Tahiti mansion and embodying the essence of that island, and even seeing the poetry of the person when he says to John Heater's character, when you say something to the effect of the island is to kiss the lips of God, or something along those lines. The poetry of the person. I just found out that I wanted to hang out with him. I'm sure that you wanted to hang out with this.
I did indeed. That was, you know, it's my favorite takeaway from people who see the film is, you know, I, as a producer of the project, I really wanted to, you know, provide, and we collectively wanted to make an offering that really differentiates from a lot of movies, which inevitably are filled with levels of trauma or vengeance or familiar tropes and structures, right? In any genre. This one just floats along in such a refreshing way. It's almost like a relief. We want people to go back to the cinema. September 19th, by the way, when we open, please do go see it in cinema because the cinematography is lovely. We shot in Tahiti, on his island, on Morea and Papeete. And it's really, like you say, it's like you go on vacation with this really funny, slightly dysfunctional and quite functional family of friends and coworkers, and you feel like you went on holiday, and that's really what we wanted to do, was create an oasis of sorts or a vacation, cinema as a retreat for a minute, just to kind of just drop the shoulders and ease the mind and learn stuff you didn't really couldn't imagine went down, while serving up these incredibly familiar kind of sacred spaces like scenes from The Godfather, scenes from Last Tango, interviews with Johnny Carson and Cavett that we've meticulously and painstakingly recreated in order to earn this complete departure into seeing the man in his absolutely most relaxed and humorous and joyful self.
Yeah, I love the intersex of Dick Cavett, how the movie starts off, and Johnny Carson. I mean, and it's even great to have that Johnny Carson footage. Some of his early 60s footage was erased and lost, but that Brando interview lives on YouTube, and I've seen it several times as a big admirer of Johnny. And I wanted to ask you this: the relationship that you and John have, or your characters have in the film, is a unique relationship that an artist and an architect have with each other, this bond to try to bring a vision to life. And John, I actually got to spend some time with about a year ago. We were backstage at an event, and all I wanted to ask him about was this movie. We weren't talking about Napoleon Dynamite. We're actually talking about Waltzing with Brando and the Phantom, of all things.
Amazing.
But there's a particular scene where John Heater's character is trying to get over on Marlon Brando and play a practical joke on him. Mm-hmm. And then it seems as though he gets him, but Brando's always a step ahead. And it's kind of a beautiful metaphor to what he was throughout the movie, is always kind of a step ahead of not just his friends and playing practical jokes, but trying to innovate in islands and like you said, trying to figure out how to power things without water. Did you find him to be an innovator when you were kind of researching and always a step ahead of people?
He was, certainly mercurial, a trickster, a practical joker, and his family, who really loved the film, recognized that, oh my God, no one's really seen that side of Daddy, is the message we get. That was him. And that was, very reassuring and emboldening. What blew me away was we shared a similar love of the sciences and leveraging the curious access celebrity affords to either heads of state and captains of industry, but really to scientists who might have unique solutions to problems. And that was just a thing I dug doing, and would bring white paper to the UN and slide some answers through. It was just, an interesting way to kind of apply. And then when I learned that he was, speed dialing folks at NASA, I work with some folks at JPL. I live in Pasadena, worked with some guys at Caltech. It's my happy place, oddly. I just really like being with engineers and being the artist at the table. I had no idea this was part of his MO. And I thought, okay, we're on the right path here at least. And some of his discoveries, what he spearheaded, is being used today on the island. I mean, he achieves his dream in such a unique way, where the Brando itself is this kind of living lab where they invite other people to come and study the processes of something called SWAC, saltwater air conditioning, which he coined, bringing cold water off of a reef through PVC pipes up to villas and workers housing, without using a diesel engine. No one's ever done that attribute that to Marlon Brando. It's crazy, the fact that they do high-speed composting, that they have no plastic on the island, and they turn glass bottles back into
The
sand from which
sand,
it
yeah.
came to reshore the tidal erosion on the beaches. It's like the most insane and brilliant closed loop process that we should all be following. I mean, it's really quite brilliant how they find the balance there and honor the place. And the film fundamentally is a love letter to Tahiti, to the people of Tahiti, and really to Marlon Brando, and to reclaim this incredible legacy for stuff he's really not known for.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I loved about the film is I kind of felt like I learned more about who he was as a person, not so much the caricature that we know as Jor-El or Vito Corleone or what have you, what many people associate with him. There's a particular moment in the film I wanted to ask what your take was it when you read it in the
Yes, please.
script, was when there's the bee. And he takes the bee off and puts it on his tongue, and the little girl thinks that he's eating the bee or what have you, and then it floats away. And that was the whole scene. What did that mean to you about Brando? What do you think it says about him?
That stemmed from two stories. So a lot of this, we ended up doing a lot of research with some of his assistants and his family while we were developing the script further. Bill Fishman, the writer-director, did a tremendous job adapting a fairly sterile account based on the memoirs by Bernard Judge, who John Heder plays, and turning it into a very appealing, almost comedic buddy picture. And then we started going deeper into the stories through the research and found that was a combination of two stories. One that happened in a pool with a bee that he put on his tongue. And the line that I say, "They're hard workers," comes from a friend of mine, actress Leslie Bega, who grew up with his daughter Cheyenne, and had witnessed a line of ants crawling over his foot and continuing. And she said to him, "Marlon, there's ants on your feet. There's ants on your feet." And he didn't want to move his foot. He said, "Well, they're hard workers. Like, who am I to interrupt their flow?" That was just like that. I said, we have to put that in the movie. And that little girl was actually my daughter, Ava Zane, who plays Sabrina, John's daughter, which was Bill's idea, not mine, to put her in. So I was very grateful for that suggestion, and she did a tremendous job.
Yeah, and it was a beautiful moment and a beautiful scene. And what you just explained there to me is also comes through with what Brando says. Even when he's talking about acting, he's like, "I'm a craftsman. I'm no different than anybody else. This is a job." Everyone, it almost looks like in his mind, in the ecosystem, in the world, in Hollywood, wherever it might be, everybody has their job to do. And I'm not bigger than any other act of nature or act of any other craft or what have you. That definitely came through in the movie as well, which I absolutely loved. And to me too, John does such a wonderful job in this movie. And I
Isn't
know
he
he's
great?
known for Blades of Glory. He's known for Napoleon Dynamite. But there's something sometimes about a comic when they come into a work that has a little bit more drama into it, that they know how to play that drama almost sometimes better than your traditional dramatic actor.
I agree completely. I think comedians make some of my do some of my favorite work, and in drama, or like you have to understand levels of tragedy to find true humor. I think Jim Carrey finds it.
Yes.
Kristen Wiig is one of my favorite actresses, dramatic
good.
or otherwise. Like, what an improvisational genius! Anyone who's that quick and on it. Is just Bill Hader. Like, you look at these performances and you just go, they do great work. And John found such nuance and a great onboard. I really loved working with him. We had such a great dynamic, and we mind something that really happens in a funny kind of working relationship, not with the actors, but in the characters, where it's like that blur between, all right, you're my employer, you're my friend, you're my employer, how fickle that place can be.
Yeah.
And how, the proximity of genius, sometimes you fancy, I'm the Brando of architecture, he probably thought, got way over his skis, completely ate it, and these are these very subtle and human foibles that come with mixing those extremes in a cocktail and giving it the space to blend and percolate and overpower it. That was really what was a lot of fun to explore, and not just push plot Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like drive a movie on character, an objective. We have a very clear
sure.
objective. There is a hurdle or threat and time and money being it. But the rest was just to kind of luxuriate in the human condition and how it manages, which is somehow I think more familiar to all of our stories because we're not all, cracking codes and saving, well, maybe you're saving the world in this movie in a slow motion, process. It's certainly not red wire, green wire, but although today we're kind of at that level. The fact that he had the foresight to realize the ticking bomb of climate change
Yeah.
back then and how it really faced those atolls. They were the front lines of rising sea levels. And I marvel at his foresight.
And what you just said, and I want to be respectful of your time, so just a couple more questions if you don't mind. But what you just
Please.
said in this movie, yes, there's obviously objective, there's obviously plot, there's obviously things to set up and further the scenes. But there was a movie that popped in my head when I was watching it, which was one of my favorites, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood with Quentin Tarantino.
It's
What I
great.
love about that movie is it's not so much about plot as it is living with these characters over this 3-day period. And in your case, several year period in this movie, but just it being around them, a hang. It's almost a hang in a
Yeah.
way. And that definitely comes through in this movie. Tahiti is such an incredible character in the film
Mm.
too. But when we talk, you mentioned Jim Carrey. One of my great favorite Jim Carrey movies, one of his great performances is when he portrayed Andy Kaufman in
Oh,
Man on the
man.
Moon.
Incredible.
Incredible. And the documentary about that movie is also equally incredible, where he's
Agreed.
talking to Andy Kaufman's daughter as Andy Kaufman and bringing some sort of peace to her soul with her father. But let me ask you this. Do you feel that after rapping on this and being so intimately intertwined with Brando, that there is now a spirit or a bit of his essence that's kind of embedded into you in a similar way that Jim had with Andy?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a nice jacket to wear. You know what I mean? That's comfortable leather. I don't want to give it back.
Yes, I can see it too. My final thing, and again, this movie is phenomenal. I really do appreciate your time. One of my favorite movies I've seen this entire year, and I'm not just saying that. I really enjoyed the film so
Oh,
much.
wow. Thank you.
If I can go back to the Future for one moment with you,
Yes,
just
you
one
can
moment.
go back.
Can we go back 40 years ago? Famously, that movie originally starred Eric Stoltz and then was reshot with Michael J. Fox. But that was a huge film, the biggest movie of that year, young in your career. What did that movie mean to you to be on that set and around those people and to experience the Hollywood system of changing a lead and reshooting and doing all that craziness?
Brad, I'm so glad you asked that. I came to Hollywood I had a family of actors. My parents were on stage. My sister's an actress, Lisa, singer-songwriter as well, and actually scored a movie I directed, which is coming out after this called Interior Hallway Night. Look for that. I think you're
I
going to like
will.
that too. Um, and but I wanted to be a filmmaker growing up, and I was crewing on commercials when I was 16, and I wanted to go to film school, but it was in my DNA being an actor. It was part of my, it was a go-to. It was easy and it was there, genetically or what have you. What I was exposed to in terms of the theater arts, and there weren't a lot of young filmmakers at that time. It was a guild system back in the 80s when I started. So being an actor made sense to start because it was such a big teen movement, a lot of teen movies, and that was
Yeah.
where I could probably get to the ground zero between camera and director and really observe and learn there as opposed to the mailroom or hauling stuff like delivering editing machines like I was in Chicago. So I entered as an actor, luckily got this job after 2 weeks of being in Hollywood, which was insane, and worked for over 6 months because we got to do it twice. Yeah, I got a do-over, and I got to work with the great Eric Stoltz, which I had the privilege of doing again in Memphis Belle. Awesome actor, and got to work with him, and then got to work with Michael J. and that rest of that incredible cast. But it was being on set at Universal Studios every day, driving on lot in a completely immersive 1950s set, which to me was synonymous with cinema,
Hmm.
like historic, nostalgic, and running around during all the breaks, terrorizing the tour buses and cruising around to, it was a kid in a candy store, and all of us, we would just, that was the best film school you could ever ask for. It was an incredible, it was a baptism by fire. You know what I mean? Like you hit the ground running. And I found also observing on part 2 when we came back, watching Steven Spielberg and Robert Zemeckis and Dean Cudney like craft or explore and demonstrate these new tool sets like motion control robotic cameras. The first time that was being demonstrated for them, I'm sitting there watching. I'd go to set every time, even I wasn't filming. I'd show up, use my pass just to watch the making of all of it, to learn, and they were very generous about it. But it was a complete, educational experience with the masters of the craft.
With the masters of the craft. Well, I'm so glad that I asked that question, and I really appreciate you taking time today. I think that you're going to be in my city, Houston, soon, maybe for the movie. I would love to come and shake your hand if that's the case.
I will buy you a cocktail or beverage of choice, sir. It would be my pleasure, amigo.
It would be my honor. Mr. Zane, I really do appreciate it. Congratulations on the film. You are sensational in it. The film is sensational, and I hope the world goes and sees it.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Gilmore.